That dream that you have is not your dream. It's God's dream. That dream that you have will not come to pass until you submit it back to the one who gave it to you. In the Bible, it talks about Joseph. And Joseph was a unique child. In Genesis 37, verse 3, it says, "Now Israel loved Joseph." Israel, his other name is Jacob. Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a special coat, a coat that was multicolored, a coat of many colors. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. Here's the crazy thing. The dad loved this child more than others. Now that's a matter of the heart. He loved this child because it was the child of his beloved Rachel who had died. And it was the woman he loved. And most of the children were from another woman, another wife that he really didn't care much for. And he was an old man when he finally had Joseph. And so this child had a special place in his heart. But it wasn't just that it had a special place in his heart. Joseph, it was made obvious to all the brothers that Joseph was loved more than everybody. I don't know who I'm talking to. Maybe you were the black sheep of your family and you felt like nobody cared about you. Or maybe you are the star of the family and everyone just loves you and think you're the best thing since sliced bread. But whatever the case may be, I want you to try and relate to the story of Joseph. Because Joseph was favored above all and given special garments and special clothes. It would be like he's the only one that got new shoes for school. He's the only one that got a car on his birthday, 16th birthday, and no one else got one on their 16th birthday. This is the kind of favor that Joseph received from his father. He was lavished with great things. So much so, the Bible says even his brothers hated him for it. They didn't hate Joseph for himself. They hated him because of his father's love. And it says, and they could not speak peaceably unto him. They couldn't even say, "Hi, good morning, Joseph," without becoming angry at the favor that was on Joseph's life. This is the setting of the story. And so Joseph, knowing that he walks in this tremendous favor in the eyes of his father, and knowing that his daddy is doting on him more love than the brothers, in the midst of that context, this is what Joseph does. He has a dream one night, and it's a dream given by God. God gives Joseph a dream, but Joseph is still young and he's still immature. And he takes this dream and he throws it in the face of his brothers. And this is what it says in verse 5 of Genesis 37. And Joseph dreamed a dream. It wasn't Joseph's dream, but he did dream a dream. And he told his brothers, and they hated him yet the more. The Bible doesn't even tell us so far what the dream was. It just says he had a dream and he shared it with his brothers, and his brothers hated him even the more. Something about this dream enraged them. Verse 6, and he said unto them, "Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed." You got to listen to this dream, guys, he says to his brothers. "For behold, look, I want you to see what I saw in my dream. We, all of us, were binding sheaves." They were agricultural people, and so you got to picture the scene. "We were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood around me in a circle and made obeisance to my sheaf." In other words, your sheaves were bowing to my sheaf in the dream. And his brothers didn't need the gift of interpretation. They knew automatically what that meant, because Joseph's sheaf representing himself and the brothers' sheaves represented them. They could see clearly the interpretation. And his brothers said unto him, "Shall you indeed truly reign over us?" Because that's what you're trying to say. "Or shall you indeed have dominion over us? Will you be our king?" And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. Joseph was not helping the situation because he said it in such a way that says, you think I'm good now and daddy loves me more? Wait till the future. I see all of you bowing to me. Joseph is rubbing it in their faces because he's still young and he's immature. Remember, he's one of the younger of the brethren because he was the son of Israel's old age. There is one younger brother, Benjamin, but both of them share the same mother. Verse 9, and he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brothers. First of all, they hated him for the first dream, and now he's telling them another dream. And he said, behold, I've dreamed another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. He has 11 brothers. So again, no strong gift of interpretation needed. Sun is the greater light, the moon is the lesser light, and the stars are smaller lights. And so the sun is the father, Israel. The moon is the mother, and the 11 stars are his brothers. And he says, I dreamed that the sun, the moon, and the stars bowed before me. Again, it's all about him and focused on him and what his brothers are going to be doing for him. Verse 10, and he told it to the father, to his father, and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him. Stop it, boy. Stop all this bragging and stop all this boasting. Even though his daddy loved him, he said, son, you got to stop doing what you're doing. You see how it irritates everybody. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow down ourselves to you to the earth? And his brothers envied him, but his father observed the saying. The brothers were mad about this, but his father says, who knows what God is up to? And so his father just kind of pondered it in his heart, even though he himself was not excited about what this dream was trying to describe. And if you know the story of Joseph, the next thing that happens is they become very enraged with jealousy and envy, and they sell him. Well, at first they throw him into a pit. And they try to tell their dad that something happened to him, that he was killed by a wild animal. And they sell him to the Ishmaelites who were on their way to Egypt. And they sold him into slavery, basically. And he goes into Egypt as a slave. And he goes through many trials and many tribulations. He goes from a 17-year-old kid to a man in his late 30s. And he goes through such trials and tribulations. He's promoted to great honor. Then he's lied on by Potiphar's wife. She claims that he tried to rape her, which he didn't. And again, he loses his coat because she takes it. He winds up in a prison. He's eating what they call the bread of affliction. The bread of affliction is just enough bread and water to stay alive. By this time, he's skin and bones, and he is just barely surviving. But he is operating in his gift, and he is in charge of the prison, but he's still not fulfilling his destiny where people are bowing before him. The butler and the baker are also in the prison with him. They have dreams. Joseph, because he has the ability to have dreams and he spends lots of times pondering dreams, he's gained the ability to interpret dreams, and he shares the interpretation with the butler and the baker. And they get promoted out of the prison, one to death and one back to his job. And then Pharaoh has a dream, and Pharaoh is trying to find an interpreter, and no one can interpret the dream. And then the butler remembers there was a man in the prison who knew my dream. And they bring Joseph before Pharaoh. You know the story. Joseph gets the dream, hears the dream, gives the interpretation, and Pharaoh promotes him to be second in command of all of Egypt. He's not born an Egyptian. He's not raised in Egypt. But he is now second in command because of his wisdom and his gift. And by this time, he's an older man. He's a lot more seasoned. He's a lot more settled. He's a lot more mature because life has beat all the immaturity out of him. He's suffered a lot. The Bible says in Psalms 109 that the word of the Lord tried Joseph. In other words, God put him to the test to prove him to be a man of character and quality. And the next time we find Joseph, we find him at a mature age. And I want us to kind of cut our learning curve in time so that we don't have to go through the long process that Joseph went through. But in Genesis chapter 50, this is what it says. Genesis chapter 50, verse 18. There's a great famine in the land. Everyone is starving. All over the country, all over the world, people are starving to death. But in Egypt, there is food because Joseph has wisdom of how to feed the world. Because he saved up for 7 years while everybody else was spending. He was saving. And there was enough grain held up to feed not only Egypt, but even the surrounding nations with the wisdom of Joseph. And so this is the setting. The brothers are sent by their father to find food in Egypt. And when they get there, Joseph looks different. Joseph is fatter. He's healthier now. He's eating good. He's eating Egyptian food. He looks like an Egyptian. He knows the language of Egypt. He speaks the language of Egypt. He wears the garments of Egypt. He's dressing like a pharaoh. He looks different, and they don't even recognize him. His whole manner has changed. He's educated now. He's not an agricultural farm boy anymore. He's an educated scholar and businessman in Egypt. And he's also a part of the royal court. Therefore, he is now a politician. He is now a part of the king's inner circle. He's the second in command. So they don't recognize him at all. He's not the brother they once knew. So when they see him, it's like he's hidden from them. But even though they don't recognize him, Joseph recognizes them because he can see the resemblance in him. He says, those are my brothers. I know my brothers when I see them. They're older now, but he recognizes every one of them. And he holds his identity long enough until he's waiting for the right moment to reveal himself. And there's a moment of humility. It says in verse 17 that he begins to weep and he's holding back his tears. He doesn't want them to see him crying. He's more humble now. Verse 18 says, and his brothers also went and fell down before his face. Sound familiar? He dreamed the sheaves would bow. He dreamed the sun, the moon, the stars would bow. I'm not sure how a sun bows, but they came down below to him, below his star. That's what he dreamed. And this is what's happening. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face. And they said, behold, we are your servants. They are paying obeisance to him. And Joseph said unto them, get up. Don't be afraid. Fear not. He could have gloated in this moment. The immature Joseph would have said, I told y'all was going to bow before me. That would have been the immature Joseph. But this is a mature Joseph. And this Joseph says, fear not. Stand on your feet. For am I in the place of God? I'm not God. Don't bow before me. But as for you, you thought evil against me. But God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. God put me here not so that you can bow before me, but so that I could be in the position to bless you. And then he says in verse 21, now therefore fear ye not. He says it again because they're afraid, because they're like, he's going to get us. They're remembering he has the authority now to do what we lied on him. We threw him in a pit. We told our daddy he was dead. For years, Israel thought that Joseph was dead because his brothers kept that secret. They made a pact, never tell daddy Joseph is alive. So their daddy grieved, had a funeral and everything, had already in his mind mentally, Joseph is no more. They did wrong. Then they sold him as a slave and kept the money and forgot about their brother, like they never had a brother. These brothers were wicked. And yet, in this moment, Joseph, who has the upper hand, he could put them in the same prison he just came out of. He could have put them in the dungeon of Egypt. But no, he says this. Now therefore fear ye not. I will nourish you and your little ones. I'm going to take care of you and your children. My nephews and my nieces are going to be okay. And he comforted them. He comforted them. They threw him in a pit, and he goes down and gives them a hug. He comforted them and spake kindly unto them. Not a harsh word, not a how dare you, not a I told you so. He spoke kindly to them and said, God bless you, brothers. What you meant for evil, God meant for our good. Joseph came to a realization. That dream that I had when I was a kid, that your sheaves would bow before me and your star would bow before me, that was never my dream. That was always God's dream, to bring us to this moment where you will bow and recognize the hand of God. It wasn't about you bowing to me. It was about you humbling yourselves for God to bless you. And I get a chance to be an instrument and a tool of God to nourish you. I need you to know that the dream that God has given you, it's not your dream. It's His dream. Because His dream will bless others through you. As long as you think the dream is about you, you're going to delay its fulfillment. I don't care what God's promised you. Maybe He promised you prosperity, and He promised you wealth, and He promised you recognition, and He promised you promotion, and told you that you would be a king, or you would be a prophet, or whatever it is that God has promised you. You're going to have your own business one day. It doesn't matter. Whatever God has promised you, I need you to know this. It's not about you. It's about His glory and all the people that are going to be blessed because of that dream coming to pass. God tells Abraham, you are blessed to be a blessing. I'm going to bless you that I may bless the nations through you. He says to Abraham, in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. I'm blessing you, Abraham, that I can bless others. Whatever dream God has given you, give it back to Him. When it becomes His dream again, it will be fulfilled. But as long as it's your dream alone, it will stay yours. But when you and God share a dream, it will come to pass. God bless you. Keep dreaming with God. Great things are in store.